Hey kids and families, Philip here. I miss you, but I'm excited to learn more about Jesus with you through our Big Picture for Kids video series. Now, you'll also want to make sure that you check out our weekly Bible story that's posted each Sunday on our Mayfield Road Kids Facebook page. These Big Picture for Kids videos will dive deeper into our Bible stories to help us see the big picture of the Bible, as well as our part in God's big rescue story. Let me ask you a question. Do you like puzzles? I think it's amazing how a small piece of a puzzle has its own place, and when pieced together with other pieces of a puzzle, forms a much bigger picture. It's pretty amazing, actually. And that's actually a good visual of what the Bible is. Remember, the Bible is God's true word. It is from God. It is about God. And through the Bible, we enter the story of God's Son, Jesus, and find our place in God's big rescue story. And that's exactly what we're going to do through these Big Picture for Kids videos. We're going to look at the puzzle box of the Bible, if you will, and see how each Bible story is a puzzle piece of a much bigger picture. So before we get started, let's go ahead and sing together.
Who breaks the power of sin and darkness, whose love is mighty and so much stronger? The King of glory, the King above all kings. Who shakes the whole earth with holy thunder, who leaves us breathless in awe and wonder? The King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. That you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Who brings our chaos back into order? Who makes the orphan a son and daughter? The King of glory, the King of glory, who rules the nations with truth and justice, shines like the sun in all of its brilliance. The King of glory, the King above all kings. Yeah, this is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. That you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Worthy is the one we praise. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the one we praise. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the one we praise. Worthy, worthy. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. That you would take my place,
Welcome back. Let's find this week's Bible story in our Bible. Go ahead and grab your Bible and turn to Joshua chapter 6. Now, the first thing that we need to do when looking for a story in the Bible is to look at our Bible bookcase to see exactly where it's located in the Bible. This week's Bible story is located in Joshua chapter 6. Now, our Bible is divided into two main sections, the Old and New Testaments. What testament is the book of Joshua located in? That's right, it's in the Old Testament. You'll also see that the Old Testament is divided into 4 sections: law, history, poetry, and prophets. Is the book of Joshua a book of Old Testament law, history, poetry, or prophets? Joshua is a book of Old Testament history. Now we need to find the books around the book of Joshua. The book before the book of Joshua is Deuteronomy. And the book after the book of Joshua is Judges. Now that we have found the book of Joshua in our Bible, let's see how Joshua fits into the big picture of the Bible. We're going to use our big picture timeline to help us. Just like a puzzle box gives us a big picture view for each piece of a puzzle, our big picture timeline helps us see where each story fits into the big picture of the Bible. Now, let's look at this. Our big picture timeline begins all the way in frame 1, when God created the world and the crisis of sin entered the world through Adam and Eve's disobedience. Our big picture timeline ends all the way in this future frame, frame 7, when Jesus returns to earth to restore his broken world, and those who believe in Jesus will celebrate with him in heaven forever. Can you find us currently on the big picture timeline? You'll see a marker between frames 6 and 7 to show where we are today. Jesus has come in frame 5, and we are awaiting his return in frame 7. You'll see this clock image to show that this is a time period when God's people waited. We also see this clock image in the Old Testament as God's people waited for God to fulfill his promise of a rescuer. Spoiler alert, the rescuer is the person of Jesus who comes in frame 5. When we look at a story in the Bible, it's important to see where the story is located on our big picture timeline. And for this, I like to put on my big picture glasses. You can pretend to put on your glasses at home while I put mine on here. Now, remember, this week's Bible story is in Joshua chapter 6, so we know that it is in the Old Testament. We've already discussed that. So it's before frame 5, the life of Jesus. We also know that this week's story in Joshua, is going to be after the creation and crisis that we talked about, and before exile. So we narrowed it down here to frames 2 and 3. Frame 2 discusses God's promise to Abraham. So we know that it's after that. So that leaves frame 3. Frame 3 is about the nation of Israel. Israel is God's special chosen people. And to help us remember frame 3, we do this motion. We place our hand over our heart. Frame 3, Israel, to remind us that frame 3 is about the people of Israel, God's special chosen people. So do that with me now. Frame 3 is about Israel, God's special chosen people. Good job. Now, in our Bible story this week, we see how God kept the promise that he made to Abraham all the way back in frame 2. And as we see in this week's story, God fought for his people and gave them victories, but only when they obeyed him. We can glorify God by loving him and obeying him. So let's learn this month's memory verse together. Remember, we call it our Mavatma. Let's learn this month's Mavatma, our memory verse of the month. Are you ready? Here we go in 3, 2, 1. Love the Lord your God, obey him, remain faithful to him. Deuteronomy 30:20. Mavatma. Now that we've learned about our big picture timeline, let's go ahead and put it to practice by looking at next week's Bible story. Remember, we first look at our Bible bookcase to find our story in the Bible. Now, as we're trying to navigate our way around the Bible, feel free to use your Bible's table of contents to help you figure things out, as well as the image of the Bible bookcase. Next week's Bible story is in 1 Kings chapter 18. So let's practice. Is 1 Kings in the Old or New Testament? It's in the Old Testament. Is 1 Kings a book of Old Testament law, history, poetry, or prophets? It's a book of Old Testament history. What is the book before 1 Kings? 2 Samuel. What is the book after 1 Kings? 2 Kings. Now let's put on our big picture glasses and figure out where 1 Kings is on our big picture timeline. We already said that 1 Kings is in the Old Testament. So we're looking at frames 1 through 4, remember? Before Jesus, frame 5. Okay? We also know that 1 Kings is going to be after the creation and crisis, after the promise and the patriarchs, and before the nation of Israel is exiled. So what frame is left? We already know this one, right? Frame 3, Israel. Do that with me. Frame 3, Israel. So 1 Kings is in frame 3 for Israel. You will not want to miss next week's Bible story. In the book of 1 Kings, the people of Israel asked for a king to lead them, but their kings kept leading them away from the one true God. In next week's Bible story, we'll see how God showed how he is all-powerful and how he is in control of all things. He is the one true God, and he is worthy of our love and obedience. Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to download our Kids Weekly Guide to help your family continue the conversation from our weekly Bible stories. And I will see you next time.